Ray Dalio just moved $500 million into Bitcoin, not through a public announcement, quietly, through 3 separate trusts that took me 2 weeks to trace through SEC filings. He's not alone. Tudor Jones increased his Bitcoin position by 400% in the last 18 months. Stanley Druckenmiller, who called Bitcoin worthless in 2019, now holds over $1 billion. Bill Ackman is accumulating. Icahn reversed his stance. Even the sovereign wealth funds are getting in. Norway, Abu Dhabi, Singapore. But here's what nobody's talking about. They're not buying Bitcoin because they think it'll go to $100,000 or $500,000 or whatever number the crypto influencers are screaming about. They're buying it for a completely different reason, and that reason should terrify you. Because I spent 3 months analyzing their portfolio moves, their public statements, their private equity positions, and the pattern is undeniable. They're not investing, they're preparing. Let me show you what I mean. January 2024, a private wealth manager in Switzerland, someone who handles money for families with 9-figure net worths, told me something off the record. He said, "My clients aren't asking about Bitcoin returns anymore. They're asking about Bitcoin custody. They want to know how to hold it outside the banking system. They want keys they control. They want geographic diversification of their hardware wallets." That's not investment talk. That's survival talk. Think about what billionaires actually do with their money. They don't chase gains. They're already rich. What they chase is preservation. They're obsessed with protecting what they have across every possible scenario: currency devaluation, political instability, wealth confiscation, banking system collapse. And for the first time in history, there's an asset that solves a problem they've never been able to solve before. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1933. You're a wealthy American. You have $10 million in gold, a fortune. Then, Franklin Roosevelt signs Executive Order 6102. Gold ownership is now illegal. You have 30 days to turn it in to the government at $20.67 per ounce. If you refuse, it's 10 years in prison. You comply. You turn in your gold. The government pays you. Then, a year later, they revalue gold to $35 per ounce. You just lost 69% of your wealth to the government overnight. Legal confiscation. This isn't ancient history. This happened to real people with real wealth. Now fast forward. It's 2013, Cyprus. The banks are collapsing. The government needs money. So they do something unprecedented. They take it directly from bank accounts. If you have over 100,000 euros in a Cypriot bank, the government just seizes 47.5% of it. Bail-in, they called it. You wake up one morning and half your money is gone. Not lost to bad investments, taken by decree. Or Argentina, 2001, the Corraliato. The government freezes all bank accounts. You can't withdraw more than $250 per week. Your life savings is trapped. Meanwhile, the peso collapses. By the time they unfreeze the accounts, your money is worth 75% less. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented government actions against wealth. And billionaires study this history obsessively. Because they know something most people don't. Governments don't collapse without first trying to save themselves. And when they try to save themselves, they take from whoever has the most. That means you, if you're wealthy. So here's the question billionaires are asking. In a world where governments can freeze accounts, confiscate gold, impose capital controls, and devalue currencies, how do you protect $100 million? How do you make it impossible to seize? For the first time in human history, there's an answer, and it's not what you think. Bitcoin is the first asset in human history that exists outside government control, completely. Let me explain what that actually means. If you own gold, it's physical. It exists somewhere, in a vault, in your house, in a safe deposit box, which means it can be found, it can be confiscated, it can be made illegal to own. History proves this over and over. If you own real estate, it's registered, deeds, title companies, government records. Every property you own is on a list somewhere. Capital controls? Property taxes skyrocket. Wealth tax? They know exactly what you own. Revolution? They nationalize it. If you own stocks, bonds, or cash, they're in the financial system, banks, brokerages, custodians, which means they're subject to freezes, bail-ins, sanctions, capital controls. Your wealth is permission-based. The government lets you access it until they don't. But Bitcoin? Bitcoin is code, mathematics, a private key, a string of numbers and letters that exists in your mind if you memorize it. 24 words. That's it. And here's the part that changes everything. Those 24 words can control $100 million or $1 billion, and they exist nowhere physical. They can't be seized at a border. They can't be frozen by a bank. They can't be found in a vault raid. You can walk across any border in the world with $1 billion in your head. No metal detector finds it. No customs form declares it. No government even knows it exists. This has never been possible before, ever. Now let me show you why this matters right now, in 2026, more than any other time in history. The United States national debt just crossed $36 trillion. That's 36 trillion, billion, million dollars. The interest payments alone are now larger than the defense budget, larger than Medicare. The government is paying $1.4 trillion per year just in interest. How do governments deal with unpayable debt? History gives us 3 options. Option 1, default. Rare because it destroys credibility, but it happens. Russia, 1998. Argentina, multiple times. Greece in the 2010s. Option 2, austerity. Cut spending. Politically impossible in democracies. Nobody votes for the politician who cuts their benefits. Option 3, inflate it away. Print money. Devalue the currency. Make the debt worth less in real terms. This is the most common choice. It's slow confiscation. Your savings lose purchasing power. The government's debt becomes easier to pay. But there's a secret option 4 that governments use when they're really desperate. Direct wealth seizure. And we're seeing the framework being built right now. The OECD just finalized the Common Reporting Standard expansion. Every bank in 120 countries now reports your account balances to your home country automatically. They know what you have, where it is, how much. The European Union just passed regulations requiring crypto exchanges to report all transactions over 1,000 euros. Full identity verification. Every buy, every sell, every transfer. Tracked. The U.S. Treasury is pushing for a global minimum tax, not just on income, on wealth. They're coordinating with other G20 nations. The framework is being built for wealth taxation across borders. And then there's the CBDC push, central bank digital currencies, programmable money, money that can be frozen remotely, money that can expire if you don't spend it, money that can be restricted from certain purchases, money that gives governments complete visibility and control. China already has it operational. The digital yuan, 260 million users. The European Central Bank is testing the digital euro. The Federal Reserve is researching a digital dollar. Now, put it all together. They know what you own. They can track every transaction. They can program restrictions into the money itself. They can freeze it remotely. This isn't paranoia. This is infrastructure being built in plain sight. And billionaires are watching. They see the same pattern that played out in Cyprus, in Argentina, in Lebanon, in Venezuela. First comes the tracking, then comes the controls, then comes the seizure. So they're buying the one thing governments can't track, can't freeze, and can't seize. But here's where it gets really interesting, because it's not just about protection. There's a second reason they're accumulating Bitcoin, and that one is about what happens after the seizure. Let me tell you about a billionaire you've never heard of. I'll call him Marcus, not his real name. He made me promise anonymity. Marcus made his fortune in tech, sold his company in 2019 for $840 million. Smart guy, diversified,
real estate in 5 countries, stock portfolio, bonds, gold in Swiss vaults. Classic billionaire wealth preservation. But in 2022, he did something that confused everyone who knew him. He converted $200 million, nearly 25% of his liquid net worth, into Bitcoin. Then he did something even stranger. He didn't keep it on an exchange. He didn't use a custodian. He created his own multi-signature setup across 3 continents, hardware wallets in different jurisdictions. Each location holds one piece of a 3-part key. No single point of failure. No single government can access it. When I asked him why, his answer was chilling. I'm not buying Bitcoin hoping it goes up. I'm buying it hoping I never need to use it. But if I do need it, if my country turns, if my banks freeze, if capital controls come, I can be on a plane with nothing but
a passport and rebuild my entire life in 48 hours. That optionality is worth $200 million. That's the part nobody understands. Bitcoin isn't an investment for these people. It's an escape pod. Think about what wealthy people actually fear. It's not poverty. They're already rich. What they fear is losing access to their wealth at the exact moment they need it most. Imagine you're a wealthy Russian oligarch in February 2022. You have $500 million, half in Russian banks, half in Western banks. You think you're diversified. You think you're safe. Then Russia invades Ukraine. Within 72 hours, your Russian accounts are frozen by the Russian government to prevent capital flight. Your Western accounts are frozen by sanctions. Every single asset frozen. You're a billionaire who can't buy a plane ticket. Your wealth exists, but you can't touch it. You're functionally broke. Now, what if 100 million of that was in Bitcoin, in a wallet you control? You're on a plane to Dubai. You land, you access your wallet, you convert enough to local currency to rent a place, hire security, start over. Your wealth travels with you because it exists nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. This is what billionaires are buying: mobility, sovereignty, the ability to opt out. But there's a deeper layer here, because Bitcoin doesn't just protect wealth from government seizure, it protects it from the collapse of the currency itself. And that's what's really keeping them up at night. Look at the British pound. For 200 years, it was the world's reserve currency, the most stable, trusted currency on Earth. Then, in just 30 years, from 1945 to 1975, it lost 80% of its value against gold. The pound still exists. Britain didn't collapse, but everyone who held pounds got quietly, systemically robbed. Or look at the French franc, stable for over a century. Then, from 1913 to 1960, it lost 99.5% of its purchasing power. People who saved in francs for their entire lives retired in poverty. This is the silent wealth destruction that terrifies the ultra-rich. Not a dramatic crash, a slow grind. Inflation, currency debasement, governments printing money to service unpayable debts. And it's happening right now. The M2 money supply, basically all the dollars in existence, increased by 40% from 2020 to 2022. 40%. They printed $6 trillion in 2 years. Your dollars lost purchasing power. Their debt became easier to pay. This is taxation without legislation, confiscation without announcement, and it's accelerating. Bitcoin has a fixed supply, 21 million coins. Ever. No government can print more. No central bank can inflate it. No politician can devalue it to pay for spending. For someone with $500 million, that's not speculation, that's insurance. But here's what nobody's talking about. The billionaires aren't just buying Bitcoin and holding it, they're building infrastructure around it. And that infrastructure reveals their real timeline. Peter Thiel didn't just buy Bitcoin. He funded an entire Bitcoin mining operation in Texas. Then he backed Lightning Network developers. Then he invested in Bitcoin custody solutions. Then he funded Bitcoin education nonprofits. That's not speculation. That's infrastructure building. Jack Dorsey left Twitter. X, the company he founded, to work full-time on Bitcoin. Not crypto, Bitcoin. He's building payment rails, mining tools, decentralized identity systems. He's spending hundreds of millions. Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy has bought over 200,000 Bitcoin, $8 billion worth. They're not trading it, they're holding it on their corporate balance sheet forever. He calls it digital property. He's converting shareholder equity into Bitcoin systematically. Why are they doing this? Because they're not preparing for next year. They're preparing for the next 50 years. Let me show you what they see coming. There's a concept in game theory called a Nash equilibrium. It's the point where everyone's optimal strategy depends on what everyone else is doing. Once enough players make a move, everyone else is forced to follow or lose. Bitcoin is reaching that point among billionaires. Here's how it works. When the first billionaire buys Bitcoin as an escape pod, it's eccentric. When 10 billionaires do it, it's a trend. When 100 billionaires do it, it becomes rational. When 1,000 billionaires do it, not doing it becomes dangerous. Because if even 10% of billionaires decide Bitcoin is essential for wealth preservation, they'll collectively buy trillions of dollars worth. There are only 21 million Bitcoin. 2 million are permanently lost. 4 million haven't moved in over a decade. That leaves maybe 15 million available to buy. If billionaires collectively want 5 million Bitcoin and start seriously competing for them, the price doesn't go up linearly, it goes vertical. But here's the twist. They don't want the price to go vertical. Not yet. Right now, they're accumulating quietly, through family offices, through trusts, through corporate treasuries. No announcements, no CNBC interviews, just steady, methodical buying. Why the stealth? Because they know what happens once their strategy becomes obvious. Governments notice, regulations come, confiscation becomes possible again. Look at what happened with gold in 1933. The government didn't ban gold randomly. They banned it because people were fleeing the dollar into gold. The wealth exodus became too visible, too threatening. Bitcoin is still small enough to accumulate under the radar. The entire Bitcoin market cap is $1 trillion. That's less than Apple, less than Microsoft. It's a rounding error in global wealth. But once it becomes obvious that Bitcoin is the billionaire escape pod, governments will react. Maybe they make self-custody illegal. Maybe they ban conversions to fiat. Maybe they impose 90% capital gains taxes on Bitcoin sales. The window is now, and billionaires know it. That's why you're seeing this acceleration, not just buying Bitcoin, but building the infrastructure to use it, move it, and protect it outside the traditional system. They're building parallel financial rails because they know the main system is going to fail, or at a minimum, become restrictive enough that opting out becomes necessary. Here's the part that should scare you. When billionaires opt out of a currency system, that system is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. Think about it. If the people with the most wealth, the most information, the most best advisors are quietly exiting the dollar system and moving into Bitcoin, what do they know that you don't? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Because the window they're using, the window where accumulation is still quiet, still legal, still accessible, that window is closing. You don't need to buy $200 million like Marcus. You don't need to build infrastructure like Peter Thiel. You don't need to convert your corporate treasury like Michael Saylor. But you need to understand what's happening. The greatest wealth transfer in human history is coming. Not maybe, it's coming. The only question is which side of it you'll be on. Will you be holding the currency that governments can print infinitely? Or will you be holding the asset they can't print, can't freeze, and can't devalue? The billionaires have already decided. They're not buying Bitcoin for gains. They're buying it because when everything else fails, it's the only thing that survives.